It was 12:14 a.m. when Stella Daniels accidentally detonated her own life. One careless, wine-fueled text, meant for her best friend, went to the wrong number. She didn't realize the mistake until her phone buzzed again, and the reply made her entire body turn cold. "Who is this?" She blinked at the name. Ji-Ho Kang. Do not call her stomach dropped. She knew that name. She knew that face, the sharp jawline, the ink covering his arms, the calm, lethal aura. She had seen him earlier that day at a cafe, and months ago, during the minor hit and run she'd helped him with. He'd given her his number strictly for legal follow-up. Stella had saved it and never expected to use it again. Yet, here she was, sending him a text describing exactly how badly she wanted the tattooed stranger from the cafe to ruin her entire existence. As she pressed her palm over her mouth, another message appeared, colder than the first. "Explain. Immediately." Her fingers trembled. "Wrong person. Wrong message. Please delete it. I'm begging you." The typing dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Then, "We will speak in person. 8 a.m. I'll send a car." Stella's breath left her chest. "What? No, no, that's not necessary." A new message arrived, slicing through her panic. "This is not optional, Miss Daniels." Her heart pounded harder. She hadn't told him her last name. She hadn't told him anything. One desperate search later, and the truth hit her. Ji-Ho Kang, Korean Mafia heir, feared, untouchable, deadly. And she had just sent him a late-night text describing in graphic detail exactly what she'd let him do to her. Stella didn't sleep. By 8 a.m., when a black luxury sedan stopped outside her building, she was already pacing her living room, nauseous. The driver stepped out, expression blank. "Miss Daniels, Mr. Kang is expecting you." Everything inside her screamed to run. Instead, she climbed in. And there he was, Ji-Ho, tattooed, controlled, sharp behind wire-frame glasses, the same man from the cafe, the same man from the accident. He lifted his phone without a word. Her message glowed on the screen between them. "3 of my men saw this," he said quietly. "They now believe you're involved with me." Stella shook her head. I, I'm not, I swear. This was just—" "Exactly," he cut in, "which is why we're going to fix it." She swallowed. "By doing what?" Ji-Ho leaned back, gaze steady and unreadable. "You're coming with me to meet my family." Stella froze. His voice didn't rise. He didn't threaten. He didn't need to. "One text created a problem," Ji-Ho said. "Now you're part of the solution." A cold wave washed over her, followed by something far more confusing. Because when she looked at him, really looked, she saw something dangerous flicker beneath the calm. Possession, calculation, intensity. And that was the moment she understood. This wasn't just about a text. This was the beginning of something she was nowhere near prepared for. Welcome to Story Nexus. Thank you for joining us today. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications bell to get more intriguing stories. At the end, drop a comment telling me which part of the story you enjoyed, which part you didn't see coming, and what stood out for you. The car glided through Koreatown like it belonged to the streets. Silent, sleek, untouchable. Stella kept her hands knotted in her lap as the city blurred by outside the tinted windows. The more distance they put between her and her tiny apartment, the more surreal this all became. Ji-Ho hadn't spoken since that final sentence. "You're coming with me to meet my family." The words replayed in her head with every heartbeat. She glanced at him, the tattoos curling over his arms, the calm rhythm of his breath, the unshakable authority radiating from him like an aura. He looked unbothered. Meanwhile, her entire nervous system was having a meltdown. Is is this really necessary? She asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Ji-Ho didn't turn his head, but his eyes shifted toward her. Yes. That was it. One syllable, firm enough to silence her completely. They drove deeper into a residential area where the houses suddenly grew large, distant, and gated. The sidewalks were empty, the air quieter, the type of neighborhood where wealth didn't brag because it didn't have to. Then Stella saw it. A towering gate, black steel and impossible to climb, guarded by two men in dark suits. They held weapons openly, not hidden, not discreet. Her breath hitched. The guard straightened the moment they spotted the car. When Ji-Ho lowered his window, they bowed. Not politely, respectfully, deeply, like he wasn't just their boss, but someone far more important. The gate opened soundlessly. Stella's pulse throbbed in her neck. The estate wasn't a house, it was a fortress. High walls wrapped around lush gardens and stone pathways. Traditional Korean architecture blended with modern luxury. Sleek glass, dark wood, and security cameras tucked into the eaves of every building. Dozens of guards moved quietly throughout the grounds, their expressions unreadable. Ji-Ho parked near the main entrance. When he stepped out of the car, Stella noticed how the guards subtly adjusted their stances. Alert, deferential, attentive. It was like watching soldiers snap to formation. He turned, opened her door, and held out a hand. She stared. "Get out," he said, not unkindly, but not asking. Her fingers slipped into his before she could think. His hand was warm, steady. She couldn't tell if that made everything better or worse. As they walked toward the double doors, Stella whispered, "This is insane. They're going to know I don't belong here." "They already know," Ji-Ho replied calmly, "but they won't question me." "Ji-Ho," she breathed, "please, just tell them the truth. Tell them this is all a misunderstanding." He stopped walking. His stillness alone sent terror crawling down her spine. Then he spoke quietly, too quietly. "If I tell my family you are nothing to me, you die tonight." Her stomach dropped. "What? Why? What do you mean?" He looked at her fully now, the brown of his eyes sharp as carved glass. "You sent a message to my monitored line," he said. "3 of my lieutenants read it. They assumed you are my lover. I'm not. That doesn't matter." His tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. Perception rules our world. If I deny you publicly, they will think you are a liability. Someone trying to infiltrate. Someone who needs to be removed. Stella's legs nearly failed her. Ji-Ho stepped closer, lowering his voice. "The only thing keeping you alive right now," he said, "is that they believe you are under my protection." She stared at him, shaken to her core. "So this, meeting your family, it's to save me?" "Yes." "It's not because you want to introduce me?" His jaw clenched, the first crack in his icy composure. "No." The lie was too quick, too practiced, too thin. But Stella didn't have the emotional space to unpack it. Not when the enormous front door swung open and a line of people stepped into view. The Kang family. Ji-Ho released her hand and straightened, like a warrior preparing for judgment. Standing at the center was a striking woman with silver hair pulled into a low knot. Her posture was regal. Her eyes sharp enough to slice glass. Ji-Ho's mother. Beside her stood a tall young man with the same high cheekbones and guarded expression as Ji-Ho, his younger brother. Behind them, three older men, uncles, by the resemblance alone, all dressed in dark suits. Every gaze fell on Stella. Every gaze judged. Every gaze dissected. Ji-Ho stepped forward, voice steady and formal. Hyun, uncles. He motioned slightly toward Stella. This is Stella Daniels. She is someone important. Important. The word echoed through Stella's chest like a warning bell. Ji-Ho's mother raised an eyebrow. His younger brother tilted his head, intrigued. One uncle quietly muttered something in Korean. Stella could feel their stares peeling back her skin. She suddenly became painfully aware of her light makeup, her trembling hands, her pink robe still peeking beneath her jacket. I, hello, she managed, giving a small, mortified bow. Silence. Then Ji-Ho's mother stepped forward, slow and graceful. Her eyes traveled from Stella's shoes to her face. So, she said, voice cool as winter steel, you are the woman my son has been hiding. Hiding? Stella squeaked. I didn't, I mean. Ji-Ho rested a hand on the small of her bag. It was meant to steady her. It only made her heart pound harder. I intended to introduce her properly, he said smoothly. Another lie that rolled effortlessly off his tongue. His mother's lips curved just slightly. Approval? Sarcasm? Stella couldn't tell. Come, the woman said. We will talk. They entered a long dining hall with a carved wooden table big enough to seat 20. Stella sat beside Ji-Ho, uncertain, while his family filled the remaining seats like a silent jury. Questions came immediately. How did you meet our Ji-Ho? What do your parents do? What is your profession? Why have we not seen you before now? Are your intentions honorable? Each question felt like a trap. Each answer felt like a test. Ji-Ho watched her with unreadable eyes, stepping in occasionally, defending her when her voice faltered or her hands shook. But the pressure only built. When the interrogation finally paused, Ji-Ho's mother rose. Stella, she said softly, walk with me. Stella stiffened, glancing at Ji-Ho. He gave the slightest nod, so she followed the woman out into the courtyard, a moonlit garden lined with stone lanterns and whispering bamboo. The moment the door shut behind them, Ji-Ho's mother stopped walking. Then she faced Stella fully. Listen carefully, the matriarch said. Her voice was quiet, deadly quiet. If you are here to hurt my son, she continued, we will remove you quietly. The air left Stella's lungs. The threat wasn't loud, wasn't dramatic, wasn't emotional. It was simply true. Stella swallowed hard, heart hammering, and the chapter ended with her realizing she hadn't just texted the wrong man. She had stepped into the center of a dynasty, one that would not hesitate to end her if she misstepped again. Stella couldn't breathe. Ji-Ho's mother stood in front of her with the calm, merciless grace of a queen, deciding whether someone lived or died. If you are here to hurt my son, we will remove you quietly. Those words echoed inside Stella's skull like a hammer. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. How could she explain she had no intention of hurting Ji-Ho when she barely knew him? When the only thing she had done was send one stupid message at midnight. Finally, she managed, Mrs. Kang, I'm not here to hurt him at all. I didn't even know who he was until last night. The matriarch studied her for an agonizing beat before nodding once. Not approval, simply acknowledgement that Stella wasn't lying. Return to the table, she said. the men will want to continue their questions. It was not a suggestion. Stella followed her back inside, feeling like she was being marched to a firing squad. The moment she stepped back into the dining room, the interrogation resumed as if she had never left. One uncle leaned forward. "You said you met during an accident. Why did you give him your number?" "It was for the investigators," Stella replied, trying not to squeak. "They needed witnesses." The younger brother raised an eyebrow. "And after that? Why did you keep his number saved?" "I forgot it was in my contacts," Stella admitted honestly. Another uncle sniffed, as if her answer was somehow offensive. Then came the rapid-fire questions. "What do you do for work? What is your education? Where is your family from? Do you have criminal connections? Are you in debt? Have you dated criminals before? Are you involved with drugs? Are you fertile?" "Enough," Ji-Ho snapped. His voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to slice through the entire table. All eyes turned to him. Ji-Ho leaned back in his chair, posture relaxed but gaze icy. "My family is not conducting a background check on my behalf," he said coolly. "You will ask questions that are relevant, not insulting." Stella blinked. His mother blinked. Even the uncle sat straighter, chastened. Ji-Ho rarely contradicted them. That much was obvious. And yet, he'd done it for her. She swallowed hard. The questions slowed after that, becoming slightly less brutal. But that didn't stop the pressure, or the way the Kang family observed her, like one observes a suspicious animal. Except Ji-Ho. He wasn't observing. He was protecting. Whenever the conversation shifted in a direction that made Stella shrink in her seat, Ji-Ho stepped in with an answer. Whenever she looked overwhelmed, his shoulder brushed hers, a silent reassurance. And whenever she faltered, he angled his body slightly in front of hers, shielding her from view in a way that was automatic and unconscious. Stella didn't understand it, but she felt it. Whatever the truth behind his icy demeanor, something deeper lived under it, something protective, instinctive, dangerously gentle. Even his mother noticed. Stella caught the matriarch watching Ji-Ho, not with anger, but with calculation. Her gaze drifted to where Ji-Ho's hand rested lightly on Stella's chair, then to the way he leaned closer when she spoke, then to the way he quietly asked, "Are you all right?" when the family got too intense. Ji-Ho didn't realize he was acting like her boyfriend, but his mother certainly did. By the time dinner ended, Stella felt like she'd survived a battlefield more than a meal. As everyone rose, Ji-Ho placed a steadying hand on the small of her back and guided her out of the dining hall. And for the first time, she realized he touched her like he had the right to. Yet, somehow, it didn't feel wrong. The moment the front doors closed behind them and they stepped into the cool night air, Ji-Ho exhaled a long breath, like he'd been holding it the entire time. "You did well," he said. Stella blinked. "I did?" "Yes." A pause. His voice softened, just barely. "You handled them better than most?" Then it happened. A smile. Small, subtle, barely a curve of his lips. But on Ji-Ho's face, it was earth-shattering. Stella stared at him, wondering if she'd imagined it. Before she could say anything, a guard jogged up to them, stopping a few steps away. He leaned in close to Ji-Ho and whispered something in rapid Korean. Ji-Ho's expression darkened instantly. The shift was terrifying, a controlled storm sliding into place behind his eyes. "What?" Stella whispered. "What happened?" He turned to her with a look that made her skin prickle. You were followed last night. Stella's breath caught. Followed? Followed by who? I don't know yet. Her chest tightened. Ji-Ho, I didn't even know you were dangerous until yesterday. Why would anyone follow me? His jaw tightened. Because someone already thinks you matter to me. Stella's knees nearly buckled. Matter to you? She repeated, stunned. I don't. How could anyone think? It doesn't matter what you think. His voice was low, tense. It matters what they think. He took a step closer, then another. Stella could feel the warmth from his body, feel how his presence filled the space around her, how it shielded her just by existing. From now on, Ji-Ho said quietly, you don't walk alone. Her breath trembled. This isn't a suggestion, Stella. It's protection. His voice dropped lower, dangerously soft. You are under my watch now. Stella didn't know whether to feel terrified or something else entirely. For a moment after Ji-Ho's warning, Stella stood frozen at the foot of the Kang estate steps, the night pressing cold and heavy around them. Followed. Someone thinks you matter to me. Her heart still hadn't started beating normally again. Ji-Ho turned toward the car, his voice controlled, but edged with a tension she hadn't heard before. We're leaving. Now. She followed him into the sleek sedan, feeling the weight of unseen eyes everywhere. As soon as the doors shut, the driver accelerated smoothly, pulling them away from the mansion's walls and into the quiet, moonlit streets. Stella twisted her fingers together. Ji-Ho, what does that even mean? Who followed me? He didn't answer right away. He simply stared out the window, jaw tight, brow furrowed. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. We're not talking about this in the open. That didn't make her feel better. They drove in silence until the car stopped in front of a tall, modern building made of glass and shadows. It wasn't the Kang estate. Too sleek, too urban. Where are we? She asked. My private apartment, he said. It's secure. Secure. Stella shivered at how casually he said it. The elevator whisked them to the 32nd floor, opening into a minimalist penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows and a panoramic view of the city. The lights of Los Angeles glittered beneath them like a living map. Ji-Ho locked the door behind them, touched a pad on the wall, and a series of soft beeps echoed. Security activated. Multiple layers. He turned to her. Sit. His tone wasn't harsh, but it left no room for argument. Stella sank onto a leather couch, feeling small in the cavernous silence. Ji-Ho walked to the windows, hands in his pockets, posture like a steel blade. The men who followed you, he began, belonged to the CO syndicate. Stella blinked. The who? A rival organization, he said, voice colder than the glass behind him. Vicious, opportunistic, always looking for a weakness. She swallowed. And they think I'm… what? Your girlfriend? His eyes flicked toward her. They think you're someone I care about. The words hit her chest like a hammer. But I'm not, Stella said quickly. This was all an accident. I didn't mean to send that message. I don't mean anything to you. Ji-Ho cut her off with a sharp look. That doesn't matter now. His gaze softened. Not much, but enough that she felt it like warmth. Perception is everything in my world, he said. If they believe you're important to me, then you are a target, whether you like it or not. Her hands shook. She clasped them tighter. But why? She whispered. Why would they care about one text? Because they believe it revealed something I've never shown before. He took a slow breath. Of vulnerability. Stella felt like the room tilted. She pressed a trembling hand to her forehead. Ji-Ho, this is insane. I didn't ask for any of this. I know. The words were quiet, heavy. Stella looked up, really looked at him, and, for the first time since meeting him, his mask cracked. Not enough for the world to notice, but enough for her to see. He looked tired, burdened, regretful. I didn't expect this, he admitted. I didn't expect you to be dragged into our world because of a mistake. He dragged a hand across his jaw, the tattoos on his arm flexing. His voice dropped lower, rougher. I didn't expect to care. Stella's breath hitched. He turned away before she could answer, pacing once to the window, then back to her. I will fix this, he said. I will make sure no one touches you. Your job, your commute, your apartment, all of it is being monitored now. Monitored? She choked. Ji-Ho, you can't do that. That's my life. It was your life, he corrected calmly. Now it's part of mine. She stared at him, stunned, furious, frightened, and worse, confused, because a small, traitorous part of her didn't hate the idea of being protected by him. I can't go to work with bodyguards, she said. People will think I'm Madam Stella. Stella froze. What? She said, heart stumbling. Ji-Ho sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. My clan has already given you a title. They think you're my partner. Partner, she squeaked. More than that? Her stomach twisted. What do you mean more? He hesitated. They think, he said slowly, that I brought you to meet the family because I intend to marry you. Stella's mouth fell open. Mary! He winced, just barely. Don't let them hear you say it like that. Like what? Like it's offensive. She stared at him, head spinning so hard she thought she might faint. Ji-Ho crossed his arms over his chest, eyes softening just a fraction as he watched her panic. He didn't move toward her, but he also didn't look away. They're wrong, he said quietly. This is not what they think it is. Then tell them that. I can't, she flinched. Why not? Because it will paint a target on your back, he said. The moment I deny you, the SEO syndicate will assume you're disposable, that they can touch you, use you, hurt you. His voice sharpened. And they will. Silence thundered between them. Stella felt her throat tighten. So, what now? Ji-Ho took a slow breath, then walked toward the kitchen island. He didn't look at her when he said, Now you stay close to me, closer than you want to. Her heart fluttered. The wrong reaction, but she couldn't stop it. She stood and walked toward him without meaning to. Ji-Ho, this is too much. His eyes lifted, locking on hers. Dark, focused, intense. I will not let anything happen to you, he said. Not because of a mistake, not because of me. Something inside Stella softened, dangerously. Then, from outside the apartment, faint voices drifted through the hallway vents. 2 staff members. Madam Stella arrived earlier than expected. Did you see the way Master Ji-Ho looked at her? Maybe she's the one he'll finally marry. Stella gasped. Ji-Ho closed his eyes briefly, muttering something in Korean that sounded distinctly like a curse. She stepped back. They're already talking about us. They will always talk. His voice dropped to a near growl. But none of it matters unless you listen to them. Stella looked at him, really looked, at the man who terrified an entire clan, at the man whose enemies watched his every move, at the man who, for reasons she didn't understand, was protecting her as if she were something fragile. something valued, something his. Emotions swirled between them, thick and unspoken. Finally, Ji-Ho straightened, stepping closer, close enough that she could feel his heat. "Stella," he said softly. She swallowed. "You're not alone anymore." Her breath trembled. "And you won't be again." Stella didn't remember falling asleep. One moment, she was staring at Ji-Ho's unreadable expression as he said, "You're not alone anymore." The next, she was waking up in a different place entirely. Warm blankets, dim lighting, a room too elegant to be anything but expensive. She sat up quickly, heart racing, only to find Ji-Ho standing in the doorway, arms crossed, watching her with an expression halfway between exhaustion and relief. "You're awake," he said. "What? Where?" "You fell asleep on the couch." His voice was calm, almost gentle. "I moved you here." "You carried me?" she squeaked. He didn't answer with words. He didn't need to. His stare told her everything. She quickly pushed her curls back, embarrassed. You didn't have to." "Yes," Ji-Ho said simply. "I did." He stepped back from the doorway. "Come out when you're ready. I made tea." By the time Stella emerged, the sun was rising through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the apartment in a soft blush of gold. Ji-Ho stood in the kitchen, wearing casual clothes for the first time since she met him. Black joggers, a loose sleeveless shirt that revealed the ink on his arms, and glasses perched low on his nose. He looked different, human, almost approachable. Stella blinked. "You made tea?" He nodded at a steaming ceramic mug on the island. "Ginger and honey." "You didn't sleep well?" "How do you know?" she asked. "I notice things." His tone was matter-of-fact, but her stomach fluttered anyway. She picked up the mug, inhaling the warmth. "This is really good." "I know." Her eyes widened. Did the Mafia heir just brag? Ji-Ho turned away before she could tease him, but she saw the faintest tug at the corner of his mouth. Over the next few days, the apartment became a strange bubble. Quiet, guarded, and intimate in a way Stella couldn't have imagined. For her protection, Ji-Ho had moved her into the safe house unit attached to his own, connected by a shared hallway and secured with biometric locks. Guards rotated downstairs. Cameras watched the entrances. No one got in without his permission. Stella should have felt imprisoned. Instead, she found herself adjusting to Ji-Ho's presence faster than she wanted to admit. Each morning, without fail, a mug of tea was waiting for her. Sometimes mint, sometimes ginger, sometimes lavender. "How do you know what to choose?" she asked one morning. Ji-Ho didn't look up from the stove where he was stirring something far too delicious smelling. "Tea reflects mood." "And what mood did you think I was in today?" she challenged. He glanced over his shoulder. Overthinking. He wasn't wrong. Stella learned quickly that Ji-Ho cooked like a man who rarely had time but refused to eat poorly. Perfectly seasoned omelets, rice porridge with soft ginger and scallions. Kimchi, he made himself, stored in glass jars. Pancakes that somehow came out fluffy every time. One evening, she leaned against the counter, watching him chop vegetables with strange fascination. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" she asked. "My grandmother," he said, not looking up. "Before I was old enough to understand why everything else in my life was dangerous." Something unspoken hung in the air. Stella swallowed. "You really love her." He nodded once. "She was the only part of my childhood that was soft." Stella's chest tightened. Ji-Ho rarely used words like soft. She wasn't sure he even liked the word. Yet here he was, offering pieces of himself to her, like fragile glass shards he usually kept hidden. Ji-Ho slept very little. Stella noticed it the first night she stepped out of her room for water and found him on the couch, reading under the dim glow of a single lamp, a thick philosophy book. She blinked. "This is what you read?" He didn't look up. "It quiets the mind. So does Netflix." He made a low sound, almost a laugh, but not quite. "Netflix doesn't survive long in my world." She sat down across from him. "And what exactly does your world look like right now?" His eyes lifted to meet hers. "It looks like you trying very hard not to panic," he said softly. Her breath caught. He wasn't wrong. The change between them didn't happen all at once. It was slow, creeping in like warmth beneath cold water. Ji-Ho began opening doors for her, even when there was no one watching. He stood a little closer each day. He listened, really listened, when she talked about her job, her fears, her ridiculous love of cheesy romance dramas. And when she cried one night after learning the CO syndicate had identified her building, Ji-Ho didn't hesitate. He cupped her shoulders gently and said, "You're safe, I swear it." His voice was steady, but his hands shook. Stella noticed. She always noticed, even when he didn't want her to. One morning, Stella joined him in the kitchen while he was plating breakfast. She reached for a spoon at the same moment he did. Their hands brushed, a soft, fleeting touch. Electric. Stella froze. Ji-Ho froze. They didn't breathe for a second. His fingers grazed hers again. Not intentionally, but slow, cautious, almost curious. Stella felt the warmth shoot up her arm, straight to her chest. Ji-Ho's voice was low when he finally spoke. "Sorry." But he didn't move away immediately. Neither did she. Eventually, he cleared his throat and stepped back, retreating behind the armor. She was beginning to understand. Happened only when he didn't trust himself. Stella stared at the spoon, like it had personally betrayed her. Nothing about that touch had been accidental. Nothing at all. That night, Stella fell asleep surprisingly fast, worn out from the emotional pressure of the day. She didn't know how long she slept. She didn't hear the door open softly, didn't see Ji-Ho step inside, didn't feel his eyes on her, gentle in a way he never let the world see. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her breathe. The moonlight caught the tattoos on his skin, softening the edges of a man who usually terrified everyone. His expression was conflicted, protective, troubled, almost tender. He exhaled quietly. "This was never supposed to be your burden," he murmured, too softly for her to hear. But he didn't leave. Not for a long time. He stayed until the tightness in his chest eased, just enough for him to breathe again. And then, silently, he closed the door behind him. Stella didn't know how long Ji-Ho stood in her doorway watching her sleep. But when she woke the next morning, the air in the safe house felt different. Thicker, charged, as if someone had pressed a hand against her heartbeat and whispered danger. Ji-Ho's usual calm was nowhere to be found. He moved through the kitchen with clipped motions, answering questions before she asked them. His phone buzzed nonstop. Each message made his jaw tighten a little more. Stella had seen him cold. She had seen him irritated. But this was something else. "Ji-Ho?" she finally asked, voice soft. He didn't look up from his phone. "You should stay inside today." "Why? What happened?" A long pause. Then, quietly, "The CO syndicate knows about the text. Her stomach dropped. He finally lifted his gaze. No glasses today? No softness. Just a sharp, lethal stare that told her the world outside these walls had shifted overnight. They think you're important to me, he said. They plan to use you as bait. Stella's breath shook. Bait. To get to you? Exactly. The room felt smaller suddenly, closing in on her, pressing tight against her ribs. But I haven't done anything, she whispered. In my world, he replied, existing is sometimes enough. Stella thought she understood fear. She was wrong. Later that afternoon, Ji-Ho allowed her to stop by her workplace, but only with 2 guards, only for 10 minutes, and only after checking every corner of the parking lot. She tried to act normal, tried to breathe, tried not to imagine enemies watching her from behind tinted windows. When she returned to her car, still guarded, still supervised, her steps faltered because someone had left her a message. Scratched across her windshield, carved in jagged lines, were 3 words. We know you. Stella's scream strangled itself before it could escape. Her body locked up, her vision blurred. She stumbled backward into one of Ji-Ho's men. Get the boss, the guard said immediately, voice sharp. I need to call him, Stella whispered, reaching for her phone with trembling hands. She didn't make it to the second ring. Stella? His voice was ice and fire and fear all at once. They know, she choked out, tears breaking free. Someone wrote on my car. Ji-Ho, they were right here. They were here. Stay where you are. His tone dropped a full octave. I'm coming now. The call ended. She didn't put the phone down. She couldn't. Her fingers wouldn't stop shaking. Exactly 4 minutes later, a black sedan tore into the parking lot, braking hard enough to skid. Ji-Ho was out of the car before it fully stopped. He didn't look like the man who made her tea. He didn't look like the man who read philosophy at night. He looked like a storm made flesh. Where is she? He barked to his men. Stella stepped forward, and his head snapped toward her instantly. Then he was moving, fast, closing the space between them in long, purposeful strides. Are you hurt? His voice cracked, barely controlled. Did anyone touch you? Speak to you? Get near you? She shook her head, crying harder. No, but they were close. Ji-Ho, they know who I am. And something in him broke. He grabbed her before he even realized he was doing it, arms around her, pulling her tight against his chest, his hand cradling the back of her head like she was something fragile. Stella froze. Not because she didn't want it, but because it felt real. Too real. Ji-Ho, she whispered into his shirt. I've got you, he said, voice low. Fierce. I swear to God, Stella, no one will touch you. Not while I'm breathing. His heartbeat thundered against her ear. Fast, erratic. The rhythm of a man barely holding himself together. She'd never seen him like this. She didn't know he could be like this. Come, he finally said, not letting go of her waist. You're done here. We're leaving. They drove in silence, Ji-Ho gripping the wheel tightly, every muscle in his body tense. He didn't take her back to the usual safe house. He took her deeper. Farther into his territory, through a second gate, then a third, to a building guarded by fingerprint scanners, retinal locks, and men who looked like they'd sooner die than disobey Ji-Ho Kang. This is the inner safe house, he said, palm pressed to the scanner. Only my family and top command can enter. The door opened with a metallic click. Inside was a fortress, disguised as a luxury apartment. Sleek, silent, bulletproof, everything. Why here? Stella asked quietly. Because they escalated, he said. So I have to escalate too. He turned to her then, really turned, and something like anguish flickered across his face. Stella, you were feet away from danger. Feet. I know, she whispered. No, you don't. His voice was raw. You don't understand what they would have done if they reached you. She swallowed hard. Is this why you plan to relocate me permanently? Because I'm a liability? His eyes snapped to hers. Don't use that word. You were going to hide me away, weren't you? He exhaled sharply, jaw clenched. I was going to keep you alive. That's not the same thing. Yes, he said quietly. It is. But you didn't tell me, she pressed. You didn't ask. You decided for me. Ji-Ho ran a hand through his hair, a ragged, frustrated motion she'd never seen from him before. Because if something happened to you, he said, voice breaking, I wouldn't recover. Stella's heart stopped. His chest rose and fell with uneven breaths. His eyes were dark, tormented, pleading. I'm not hiding you, he whispered. I'm terrified of losing you. The words landed between them like a spark in dry grass. Slowly, Stella stepped closer. His eyes followed her every move. Ji-Ho, she breathed. He didn't move away, didn't blink, didn't breathe. Her hand hovered near his chest, close enough to feel the heat of him. He leaned in, just a fraction. Their foreheads nearly touched, their breaths mingled, uneven. His hand lifted, slow, hesitant, until his fingers brushed her jaw. The world held still. Stella, he murmured, voice trembling. If I kiss you, I won't stop. Her pulse thundered. Maybe I don't want you to. His lips ghosted over hers, warm, tentative, almost there. A millimeter, a breath, a heartbeat. But then, a knock at the door shattered everything. Ji-Ho turned away sharply, fists clenched, chest heaving. Stay here, he growled, voice rough. Stella pressed a hand to her racing heart. They hadn't kissed. But they had crossed a line neither of them could ever step back from, and both of them knew it. The knock on the safe house door lingered in Stella's mind long after Ji-Ho stepped out to meet his men. She didn't know what they told him, but when he returned, the raw, vulnerable softness from moments earlier was locked away, buried beneath the icy exterior of the Kang air. Stay here, he said, ushering her deeper inside. No exceptions. She obeyed, but she hardly slept. By morning, she convinced him she needed to at least stop by work. She felt the danger everywhere now, but hiding forever wasn't an option. Ji-Ho didn't like it. He didn't trust it. But he finally agreed, with conditions. You go with security, he said. 2 men at minimum. You don't walk anywhere alone. You don't take a single step out of sight. Understand? Stella nodded, though her stomach twisted. He cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek in a fleeting, almost unconscious gesture. If anything feels wrong, he said, quietly, you call me. Immediately. She swallowed. I will. And for a moment, their eyes stayed locked, speaking 1,000 unsaid things. Then he let her go. The morning outside the safe house was eerily quiet, too still. Stella walked between 2 of Ji-Ho's guards, tall, stone-faced men she barely knew, but trusted, because Ji-Ho trusted them. As they escorted her toward her workplace's parking lot, the hairs on the back of her neck rose. Something felt off, wrong, predatory. Is it always this empty? She whispered. No, one guard said. Stay close. They approached her car, still scratched, though someone had tried to clean the windshield overnight. And then, the world broke open. 3 men stepped out from behind a van. Not walking, not approaching, advancing. Their posture was unmistakable. Intentional, violent, coordinated. SEO syndicate. "Ma'am, get back," one guard ordered. But the men were already moving. One grabbed Stella's wrist. She didn't scream this time. Shock froze her throat. Everything happened in a blur. Her guard tackled the first attacker, slamming him into the hood. The second guard grabbed her arm and yanked her behind him. But another syndicate man rushed in, swinging a metal pipe. The sound of impact, metal hitting bone, echoed across the lot. Her guard staggered, blood spraying the pavement. Stella gasped. "No, no, no!" The attackers shouted in Korean, trying to grab her again. She stumbled backward, falling against the ground. Pain shot up her spine. Another hand reached for her ankle. She kicked, hard. Her shoe flew off. The man cursed. Her guard, the one still standing, drew his weapon. Gunshots cracked the air. 2 bodies hit the asphalt. The third attacker lunged for Stella again. She scrambled back, palms scraping the rough ground, her heart slamming against her ribs. "Ji-Ho!" she cried, not even knowing if the sound reached anyone. Then, a final blow. The last syndicate man collapsed, unconscious, dropped by her guard's fist. Silence. Just Stella's ragged breathing, a smear of blood across her cheek, and the shattered remains of her normal life at her feet. A black car screeched into the lot so violently Stella thought it might flip. Ji-Ho didn't even wait for the tires to stop spinning. He ran. Fast. Too fast. "Stella!" His voice tore through the air, raw, frantic. She tried to stand, but her legs trembled beneath her. He reached her in 3 strides, falling to his knees in front of her, hands hovering inches from her skin. "Where are you hurt? Did they touch you? Did they take you? Stella, answer me." She shook her head, breath broken. I, I'm okay. I don't know. I don't know." He cupped her face with both hands, thumbs brushing the blood on her cheek. Not hers, one of theirs. The realization made him inhale sharply. He wiped the smear away with his thumb, staring at the red stain like it was a personal insult. Then he pulled her against him, hard, desperate, crushing her to his chest. Not calculated, not careful, not cold. A man terrified he'd lost something precious. "I almost lost you today," he said, voice strained, vibrating with emotion he usually buried. "Do you understand that?" "I almost—" He broke off, tightening his grip as if afraid she'd vanish. Stella clung to his shoulders, sobbing quietly into his shirt. His scent, clean, subtle, familiar, grounded her. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm here. I'm okay." He didn't let go, not for a long time. Even when his men approached, even when paramedics checked his guards, Ji-Ho stayed with her, one arm around her waist, his body a shield. Finally, when he trusted she wasn't falling apart, he stood and pulled her gently to her feet. "Look at me." She did. His eyes were a storm, dark, furious, terrified. "You're done going to work," he said. "You're done walking around without me. You're done living anywhere I can't reach you in 3 seconds." She opened her mouth to argue, but his voice cut through her breath. "You're moving to my personal penthouse. Today." Ji-Ho! This isn't up for discussion. The authority in his tone wasn't possessive. It wasn't controlling. It was a man desperate to protect someone he cared about more than he knew how to admit. Stella exhaled shakily. "Your penthouse? With you?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "Where you'll be safe, where they can't get near you, where I can get to you the second something happens." "Ji-Ho, this is all—" A lot. He softened, just barely. I know, he whispered, stepping closer. But after what happened today, your life isn't the same, and pretending otherwise will get you killed. Stella's throat tightened. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't exaggeration. She had been seconds away from disappearing into a van, seconds away from a fate she didn't want to imagine. Ji-Ho reached for her hand, hesitant at first, then firm when she didn't pull away. Come with me, he said quietly. Let me keep you safe. Stella looked at him, really looked. The man she'd mocked in a mistyped message. The man she'd feared, argued with, misunderstood. The man who had become her gravity. Her answer came as naturally as breathing. Okay, she whispered. I'll go with you. And the relief that flashed across Ji-Ho's face was enough to shake the earth beneath her feet. Ji-Ho's personal penthouse was nothing like the safe houses she'd been in. It wasn't cold, or sterile, or guarded solely by steel and technology. It felt lived in. Bookshelves lined with philosophy and military strategy. A piano in the corner, untouched but polished. A massive window overlooking the city. LA, glittering beneath the fading afternoon light. And for the first time, Stella realized this was Ji-Ho's world, not the Kang heir's, his. The man beneath the ink and violence and responsibility. But as soon as she crossed the threshold, his protective instincts snapped into something sharper. Stay away from the windows after sunset, he instructed. She blinked. Okay. You don't open the door unless I verify it first. Ji-Ho, and if you need to leave for any reason, you tell me. Not my men, me. Stella froze. There was something frantic in the way he moved, like he needed to control every molecule of air around her. Like if he let even one detail slip, he'd lose her. She stepped forward slowly. Ji-Ho, breathe. He looked at her, chest rising and falling too fast. I watched them try to take you, he said, quietly. I saw you on that ground. Stella, I can't. He cut himself off, hand flexing at his side. I can't let that happen again. She reached for the back of a chair, grounding herself. I understand. No, he said, voice harder now. You don't. He paced, something she'd never seen him do. You could have died today. Or worse, you could have been taken. And that? He stopped mid-step. That would destroy me. Stella's heartbeat stuttered. She'd seen Ji-Ho cold. She'd seen him angry. She'd seen him afraid for her. But seeing him afraid of himself was something else entirely. Ji-Ho, she said softly, I'm not a prisoner. I know. His jaw tightened. But I need you safe. She shook her head. Safe is one thing. Locked down is another. He stiffened. Stella took a slow breath. I'm not a problem you protect. I'm a person you trust. Silence cut through the room like a blade. Ji-Ho's hand curled into a fist. He turned away, staring at the city beyond the glass. I don't trust myself, he said finally. The words were low, agonized. I don't trust this world with you. She swallowed, throat tight. Ji-Ho! I've spent my entire life calculating threats, eliminating risks, controlling outcomes. He exhaled roughly. But you, Stella, you make me feel things I can't control. Her heart dropped to her stomach. Not fear, not danger, emotion. Raw, unfiltered, unruly emotion. Stella stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. What things? He didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, slowly, like tearing down walls brick by brick, he said, I want to protect you, but I also want... He stopped again. She placed her hand on his arm, light, tentative. Tell me. He turned toward her sharply. I want you." The words punched the air from her lungs. His gaze searched hers, desperate, conflicted, fierce. "But wanting you puts you in danger," he continued. "And every instinct I have tells me to keep you somewhere no one can reach you." "And what does your heart tell you?" she whispered. He flinched, barely, at the word heart. It was the first time the emotion in him didn't come from fear or anger or responsibility. It came from longing. "Stella," he breathed, "I care about you more than I should, more than is safe." Her eyes burned. "Ji-Ho, I care about you too." His breath hitched. For a moment, neither moved. They stood inches apart, their confession hanging between them like a live wire. She lifted her hand to his chest. His heart hammered beneath her palm. "It's not just protection anymore," she said. "You know that." He closed his eyes. "Yes, and you're not the only one afraid." His eyes snapped open. She held his gaze. "I'm terrified too. I'm terrified of what being with you means. I'm terrified of losing myself, losing everything normal in my life." He swallowed hard. "But," she continued, voice steady, "I'm also terrified of losing you." Ji-Ho's breath faltered. "Stella." She stepped closer until their bodies almost touched. The tension between them was a magnetic pull. Dangerous. Undeniable. He exhaled shakily. "I'm giving you a choice." Her heart climbed into her throat. "If you walk away now," he said softly, painfully, "I'll protect you from afar. You'll be safe. You'll live your life. But we," his voice cracked, "will be nothing." Stella's vision blurred with emotion. "If you stay," he continued, "I can't promise peace. I can't promise safety. I can only promise that I will fight for you, every day, against everyone, even against myself." Her breath trembled. "You'd fight yourself? For you?" His voice was a whisper. "Every version of me." A tear slid down her cheek. Ji-Ho reached for her, hesitantly, as if afraid she'd break, but stopped inches from her face. "No pressure," he said softly. "No force, just truth. If you choose to leave, I'll let you go." Stella inhaled deeply. Then she stepped forward and closed the last inch between them. Her voice was quiet, certain, steady. "Take me home, Ji-Ho. You're home." The tension snapped. He grabbed her waist, pulling her in with a force he'd been holding back for too long. She wrapped her arms around his neck, rising onto her toes. His forehead pressed to hers. A single, shattered breath between them. "Stella," he whispered. "I'm here," she whispered back. And then he kissed her, not gently, not hesitantly, but fiercely, desperately, like a man who had been drowning and finally reached air. Their mouths met in a rush of heat and hunger, his hand sliding up her back, her fingers tightening in his shirt as she pulled him closer. The world outside disappeared. No mafia, no danger, no fear. Just them. Two people who should have run from each other, but collided instead. A kiss that felt like a confession. A promise. A beginning. When they finally broke apart, gasping, foreheads still touching, Ji-Ho whispered, "You're mine now." Stella smiled softly. "Only if you're mine too." His answering exhale trembled, with relief, with emotion, with everything he'd tried so hard to hide. And for the first time since the text that started it all, Stella felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Ji-Ho didn't sleep. Not after the kiss that shifted the earth under them. Not after the confession he'd spent a lifetime suppressing. Not after wrapping Stella against him while the city hummed below the penthouse windows. At dawn, He disentangled himself from her arms, brushed a kiss to her forehead, and whispered, "I have to end this." Stella stirred, blinking sleepily. "Ji-Ho?" His fingers lingered at her cheek. "Rest. I'll be back." Something in his eyes, steel mixed with sorrow, made her chest tighten. "What are you going to do?" "Finish what they started." "Ji-Ho!" "It's the only way to keep you safe." His voice was a low vow, meant only for her. Then he turned, slipping into a black suit lined with Kevlar, fastening his holster with the same calm precision he'd shown in every crisis. Except this time, he wasn't calm. He was furious, determined, in love. He left before she could rise, before she could follow him, before she could say all the things sitting in her throat. And Stella felt the quiet he left behind, like a pressure in her ribs. By mid-morning, she was pacing the penthouse like a trapped heartbeat. Ji-Ho's men blocked the doors. "Where is he?" she demanded. "Meeting with the SEO leadership," one replied. "Clan elders are present." Elders, which meant this wasn't just a negotiation. It was judgment, punishment, war, wrapped in tradition and blood. "What does that mean?" she whispered. "It means today decides everything," another man said quietly. Hours crawled by with no updates, no calls, no texts. Every worst-case scenario played in Stella's mind. Ji-Ho shot, stabbed, taken, gone. She pressed her palms to the cold glass window and whispered, "Please come back to me." It was nearly sunset when she heard the elevator doors open. Stella spun. Ji-Ho stepped inside, alive, whole. But blood stained the edge of his collar, and exhaustion pulled at his features. She flew into him without thinking. His arms wrapped around her instantly, holding her tight to his chest. His breath shuddered against her hair. "It's over," he whispered. She pulled back enough to see his face. "You're hurt." "It's not mine," he murmured. Those two words made her knees nearly give out. "What happened?" "A meeting," he said. "A confrontation. A threat. A counter-threat." He exhaled. "But in the end, a truce." She clutched his lapels. "A real one?" "As real as our world allows." His thumb brushed her cheek. "You're safe now, Stella." Those words hit harder than any confession. Safe, not maybe, not for now. Safe. Her eyes stung. "I didn't want you going there alone." "I know." He cupped her face gently. "But it had to be me. For you." There was no cold mask now, no walls, just the man who had kissed her, like she was something he never believed he could have. Then his voice lowered, rough, uncertain. "If you want to leave, you can." A breath caught in her chest. "You'll be protected," he continued. "My men will watch you from a distance. You can go back to your life, your job, your routine." His jaw flexed. "I won't interfere." She stared at him, at the man who would burn down the world to save her, but would walk away if she asked. "You're giving me a choice," she said softly. "I promised I would." Her heart swelled, painful and full. "Ji-Ho!" She stepped closer until there was no space left between them. "I'm not going anywhere." His eyes closed for a long second, like her words cracked something open inside him. When he looked at her again, the storm he carried had calmed. "You're sure?" he whispered. "More than sure." He nodded once, as if steadying himself. Then he reached into his pocket. Stella blinked. He held out a small, heavy object, a key. Silver. Simple. But the weight of it felt monumental. "This," his voice was quiet, "is the key to my personal residence. Not the penthouse, not the safe house, my home." Her breath hitched. "Stella Daniels," he said slowly. "I don't offer this lightly. I have never given anyone access to that place." His thumb brushed hers as he placed the key in her palm. "But it's yours, if you want it." She stared down at the key. It wasn't a ring. It wasn't a promise of forever. But it was something far more intimate in Ji-Ho's world. Trust, access, belonging. Her fingers curled around it. "I want it," she whispered. Ji-Ho exhaled sharply and pulled her into him, his forehead resting against hers. "Then you're part of my world," he murmured. "My life, my family." She smiled. "I already am." 3 days later, Ji-Ho took Stella back to the Kang estate. This time, she didn't ride silent and terrified. This time, she held Ji-Ho's hand the entire drive. When they entered the mansion, the atmosphere shifted. Guards bowed deeper. Servants stepped aside with murmured greetings. And the family, his formidable, judgmental, intimidating family, waited in the dining hall. Ji-Ho's mother sat at the head of the table, posture regal, gaze sharp. When Stella and Ji-Ho walked in hand, Stella felt Ji-Ho's fingers tighten around hers. His mother's brows lifted a millimeter. Then she looked at Stella, looked at their joined hands, looked at the steadiness in her son's face. At last, she rose from her seat and walked toward them with slow, deliberate steps. She stopped directly in front of Ji-Ho, studied him, then shifted her gaze to Stella. A long, quiet moment passed. Then she leaned in, just enough for only Ji-Ho to hear, and said, "You chose well." Ji-Ho's breath left him in a subtle exhale, one Stella felt through his hand. And, as they took their seats at the long family table, Stella realized something she never expected when she sent that ridiculous late-night text. She wasn't a mistake. She wasn't a rumor. She wasn't an accident Ji-Ho needed to clean up. She was his choice. And he was hers. The beginning of something fierce, something dangerous, something breathtaking. A new life, a new love, a new world. And, for the first time since the text that changed her life, Stella smiled without fear.